everyone, and welcome back. We are going to be working on our cart screen, and we have our checkout. We haven't created any component for this just yet, but we can just reuse this as is. So let's jump in. So the first thing I do is I'm just going to create like a direct copy of this cart screen, and here we can, we can work directly from this. We can use our layout grid, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call this my card container, and I'm going to go into my assets and pick this up right here and throw that in. Like that. So we already have our card container ready to go. It looks beautiful, and we can just, duplicate that and throw in another image. Maybe it's like a pair of Converse. And here, I don't think we need any spacing between items, and we don't need any spacing on top. So we've already cut down significant amount of clutter. And the next thing I do want to do is get a header or a navigation area for this. Where are you at? Just at the bottom here. So you can also view these as list items if it's easier for you. So have navigation, form navigation. Sometimes I like to see what's going on up here. So we have that. Let's see if we have a header. Yeah, there we go. We have an overlay header. Looking good. So we're just going to drag that in here. I'm going to press Command C and just paste that. We can remove it. And here we can actually mess around with the padding. So we can, instead of 48, which is excessive, we can do something like maybe 24, or maybe we can do 16 and 16. So that's looking really good. And we can just call this our cart. And next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hide the right icon. Beautiful. I want to actually clip the content here. As you can tell, I have a border radius on just the top left. If you click on these, it'll show you over here where specifically the radius is going to go. So I'm just going to have this sliding up. And that looks beautiful. And now I'm just going to need my button container now. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to say that it's like text based. Let's check out, and cart total, and we could just leave that there. Next thing to do, place that bad boy right. Oh, I'm gonna have to just copy and paste in there. Command C and V. And then make sure that that is filling the container. We don't need that anymore. And there we go. We have our own cart, and we can just toggle this delete and not fill that container. We can hug those contents, making sure that this container is right aligned to the right. So you can just set them to hug contents because they're set to the width that they need to be set for this, which is 392. So I'm just going to keep that there. And okay, so I'm just going to drag this below so that way we have that as a reference. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this screen as my reference, and I'm going to rename this to my checkout. Okay. And I'm going to grab another asset. Let's grab that header, bring that in here. We don't need that anymore. Oops. So we can just make sure that's right to the top. Perfect. We do not need that right icon again. We can call this checkout. And at this point, we can, just delete that. We can bring this up. And now we may need to play around with this. So I am actually going to detach this instance and just use the base. So I'm thinking more and more, I'm just going to need to use the base for a lot of these things. So I have payment method. You know, I'm thinking that's a little bit too big, so we can just bump it back down. And going back into my base, hugging the content there. Instead of like show filter, we should probably change it to show button and just have a standard button there. And just a little edit button. And then we can actually just drag this right in there because we can leave it as is. And the only thing we're really going to change here, we're going to start changing like the colors. Anything that's like black is going to be like 900. Anything that's fine. That's probably just the text in the back. Perfect. Okay, so now we just need to, you know, clean this up a bit. This is 14 medium, so I'm gonna go to my label and find 14 and just plop that in there. And this one is a 16. Let's see what we can find here. I think we can go with the 14 bold. Body 14 bold or something like that. We can do the same for this. Let's do it all the way here. And let's go to my layers. Sub my credit card number. I'm gonna just make sure it's hugging. Press enter and hug those contents as well. Perfect. And there we go. So we have our content in there. I quite like this version. You know, we can make it like extra nice if we want to. Like, I think that looks sleeker than the yellow. The yellow is kind of like nauseating, so we don't need to use that all the time. Okay, just making sure. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab another rule. Okay. I'm going to put that rule there. And we can actually just, like, if we wanted to, we can keep this whole container going. And instead of payment method, we can do address now. It's looking beautiful. And now we need some text like that. So I'm just going to grab this container. And you guessed it, I'm going to throw that bad boy in there. And over here, what I'm going to do is just grab, I already have the name, but I'm going to make sure that it is like in the like heading size format. Same with the text over here. Just going to grab all this text and throw that in there. I think that can stay the same. We can copy that, paste it down below. And I'm just going to copy these and call this a container. Fill container, and make sure everything else is fill container within. That's mixed, but that's okay. And these ones, I'm just going to put these in a frame as well. So I'm going to container that, and I set this to fill. Make sure everything else within it is filled. I'm pressing enter to access all that content. And then just adding a bit of spacing, deleting some of this stuff that we don't need anymore. And then we're going to go into our assets tab, grab an input or our U. So we're going to grab that input, and we're not going to use the label. And we'll just use promo code, and we will grab ourselves a beautiful button over here. So it's at large. That was weird that automatically did that. Sometimes auto layout's a little funky like that. I'm going to select these both, throw them in a frame, throw them within, wrong frame, throw them within here, fill that container, make sure this one's set to fill, and this one is set to apply. So we can even change the color, like this is really light, so we can change those colors as well. And there we go. We have our thing, our promo code, and just maybe add another rule there so that way it's down here. I'm just gonna bring this down to 44. Got to fix the inputs so we can make those exactly the same. And then I'm gonna bring that here. And what I'm gonna do here is I am going to, make them go both ways. I'm gonna set to hug and then fill again, so it fills it. Press enter, fill those. I'm gonna make sure my text on the right is set to free. Fill the container, hug the content, and same thing here. Hug the content, fill the container, and over here I'm going to write delivery. And this content is going to be at 800, but it's also going to be regular hug that content. Okay, so make sure that all fits, and another line just below. This one is going to be total, and we can bump this bad boy right up. Oops. To bold, and this is going to be like our number, and this can get bumped up as well to say maybe more than 24. I think that's gonna work. Perfect. And there we go. And if we really wanted to, we can take these and throw them into another price container, whatever you want to call it, and do something like that. Now we can remove this, grab this container, send it to the bottom. Remember to, make sure it's left and right and bottom and fixed. These are like little details that you can, just remember. Pay now. And there you go. So now we have our checkout screen. Oops, I'm going to keep this as a reference. So I'm going to just bring everything over like this. Bring my cart over. And I'm going to bring this one down here. And as you can tell, we've made some really big changes, and I am really liking the direction that this is taking. So we have our cart, we hit checkout, and we go to this section. And the only thing that we need to think about here is the arrow back. And there we go.